there's something so comforting in knowing that we will die. It's almost kind of perfect, you know? Like, I can't honestly, I think of risks that I've taken and things that I've done in my life as much bigger risks than they probably seem from the outside looking in, just because they're contextually they're mine. And so all of the stories that I bring to them that I have to then overcome are mine, so they feel like greater risks, right, than they probably objectively are. I think we can all share that. And I don't know if I could imagine doing everything that I do if we lived in a world that our lives were not finite. I don't know that, you know, like the fact that we do die, and I'm this isn't a video to talk about the afterlife or things like that, because something that I don't, you know, I will never have an answer to. I don't think I'm saying anything particularly like profound or new here, by the way. Let me get that out of the way. You know, but I think I've gotten more comfortable with just knowing and understanding and accepting and celebrating the fact that it's all gonna come to an end, like the entity known as me, and there's gonna be, you know, yeah, it just provides so much beautiful context to life, because it really kind of is an invincible mindset. And I'm not talking about just nihilism where it's like nothing matters, so here's this, you know, got some people out here, and I think I'd be scared of them hearing me in the past, but it's also like, what can they say or do that will stop? I think of life a lot like that, like what can they say or what can anyone say or do that will stop the inevitable from happening? It's like nothing. So why don't I continue to just do something that I feel called to do, that feels central to me? And there goes the point that I thought I was making, but it's also like, I realize I limit myself a lot, and the limitations I put on myself have an unconscious air of perceived immortality. Example, I am an actor, and I have dreams of being a well-respected actor that is able to work on productions that are at the top of the film and TV world and the theater world, and that's among so many other things. If you follow me on any other channels, you see that it's a mix of comedy, and it has a kind of vibe of like whatever I feel called to. And I realize that sometimes I can, without even realizing it, limit the self-expression that I feel called to produce, create, and share, because I'm thinking so down the line of, oh, well, when this casting director sees this video, you know, this video where I'm speaking freely and it's not scripted, it's just me, that will be a turnoff, and I'm sort of making the decision for them. And it just, something I love about just injecting yourself with I saw a weird shadow there. Injecting yourself with the spirit of considering your mortality early and often and frequently, is that like it cuts all the kind of bullshit out. Anything you can't control, it falls to the wayside. And yeah, I'm sitting here, and at times I'm starting to realize while I'm making this video how much considering death consistently and realizing the context it brings to life has helped me in my life. You know, because in talking with people and talking to camera, I think I used to be really afraid of silence or wasting someone's time, or not, I'd be so concerned with something that was outside of me, because what I'm doing now is just being me. And I realized, like, just considering your mortality, not in a way that it's, well, nothing matters, but I read this quote once that says, if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do. And it makes a lot of sense to me somehow, even though it sounds very just like trivial and nonsensical. But it sort of has the vibe of if we were just placed here, you know, by what some of our greatest minds describe as the luckiest bounce you could ever get in the history of the universe. Like, it's such an insane thing that I'm here right now with a camera and a tripod, and then it's just like, why not? You know, there are things that are central and intrinsically true to humans, and I think the craving of joy and connection and all of that, and sharing our self-expression and art are central to us. So it's like, yes, we can, again, it's I say again because I make this point a lot, it's love or fear. And I think nihilism is fear, whereas I think considering your death in this way, in terms of like, how can I just make this experience, how can I just trust myself more? Because the harsh reality is, no matter how little or how much I trust myself throughout my life, it won't stop me from not existing at some point. So then all of these things happen, I think, and it gets you to a point, or I guess what I mean by that is you can rinse and repeat that logic and say, okay, well, if it doesn't actually matter technically if someone casts me in this thing, or if this video gets 100,000 views, 1 million views, if that doesn't matter because I can't take it with me, then why not go full steam ahead, head first into the things that excite me the most? And this video is one of them. You know, like, I have a raspy voice right now from being at a football game and being out at a concert last week. And part of me was like, well, just wait until that heals, and then go. And there's truth to that, but there's also even more truth, in my opinion, to the fact that nothing exists outside of the present moment. So it's like, if nothing exists outside of the present moment, and this experience will end at some point, then the answer becomes super clear to me, and it's go full steam ahead with every ounce of you, in every regard, with what feels exciting to you. Just go. If something feels exciting to you, whether it's you see someone, you know, today there was a man on the train home from a gig that I was at, and he had a great mustache, and he was sitting next to me, and I didn't say anything. And then I felt like I was given another chance because we both went down at the same time. So I said something to him, and we just had this beautiful conversation. And he ended up being a CEO of like a $300 million company that I had heard of. And I'm not in the business world anymore, but it's like, and it's not because of what that conversation could have led to, in my opinion. It's not because of what that conversation could have led to, because what is it leading to besides death? I hope I'm not sounding, I guess I don't care how I'm sounding. It was just that it excited me the most in the moment. It felt like, oh, this is what I want to do. And I think the more that you consider your mortality, and the more that you can trust yourself, because trusting yourself and doing what feels intrinsically correct to you is kind of the perfect move. Because you're either right, and then you're really right because it's this unique thing that only you could have produced, or you're wrong, but you have the beautiful opportunity to reflect on why you're wrong. And maybe it's because you're trying to mimic something else, or because your compass isn't in the right spot, like your moral compass isn't in the right spot. But then you get that information, and if you can just sort of look at things objectively and try to put your ego aside, then all of a sudden you're able to follow that intuition and sharpen that intuition. You know, I see a lot of people start things and then not carry them out because their intuition, they haven't sharpened it. It's like, I make a lot of comedy reels on social media. I say these things sound so silly to me, probably because they are mine, not mine, but I do them, so they feel so, to someone else it might be like, oh, that's a good example, but to me it feels interesting. But I know that when I first started doing that, sure, there might have been videos, projects that took off because I thought they were funny and I followed that through, but I also know there were a ton of failures that I looked back on and I said, you know what that is? I saw this video and I just tried to mimic it, and I didn't listen to myself. And then that's produced something where I, you know, built on top of another thing, and I go, okay. And it's such a joy to be right when I'm truly leaning into who I am and following that intuition, trusting myself. But it's also such a joy to be wrong, because then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm closer to being right in the future. But really all that is I'm closer to fully trusting myself, because most of the projects that I look back on and say, I don't know about that one, it's either I've grown because maybe I was wrong, which is gonna happen, or it's because I wasn't fully listening to myself. I listened to myself 90%, but then I asked someone else and I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And I took their opinion as gospel because it wasn't mine. And I think we do that a lot. We have so much context within ourselves, like we know ourselves so well that any opinion outside of ourselves is like, oh my God, just give me that one, because I'm so sick of my own opinions. But I think, again, death being a context you consider a lot, I just feel like there's nothing like you only know how your mind works, and you only know what you desire. So if you're the main compass in my eyes is is this action hurting anyone else, or is it just harmless? And while I am sort of tempted to say like, well, this experience is going to end either way, so it almost doesn't matter, I think there are obviously things to hold yourself to a moral standard of, and I think that's a good one and it's very simple, right? It's kind of what America's built off of. Can't deny anyone else the right to life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. And it's so simple, but it's so important, because if you can look at something and say, I'm gonna die, I'm doing this thing, it excites me, truly it excites me, and it's not hurting anyone. And a lot of emphasis on that one, because like, you have to be really honest with yourself about, is this not hurting anyone? But once you get to that honest point, it's like, oh my God, this flows through me, and this is me. And I think that's how you find yourself. So yeah, to wrap this up, I don't think, you know, I watch a lot of videos on YouTube, a lot of these type of videos where someone sits and talks to the camera, and I think, wow, they're making such good points. Wow, I'm gonna live my life with this thought in mind, and then that lasts for 2 days, maybe, if that, until I find the next video or the next piece of information that allows me to grow for that short amount of time. And that's a beautiful thing. But I want to say, like, I think the fear of death, things like the fear of death, and just the fear of other contexts, the fear of what people will think of you, the fear of failure, the fear of anything that's not death, those are emotions, and those have truth in and of themselves. And it's not me saying that those can't exist, and it's not me saying that you have to live this life of walking around, you know, strutting your stuff because you know that you will that this experience will end. So, and while you can ingrain that in you, I think it's almost impossible, because we're sort of built to yearn for that immortality. So I think what I've tried to do, and if I may make a suggestion, it's that it's not about getting yourself to a state where you don't think about the other fears and the other contexts that are less meaningful than death. It's just using it as a tool so that when we inevitably get caught up in the contexts of life, like someone cutting us off in traffic, or saying, I'm not going to go talk to that girl or guy because they don't want to talk to me, or they this, that, and the third. It's just something, it's like a little tool to bring with us and say, okay, well, just remember that this experience is going to end. So really, really, really look yourself in the eyes and ask if this thing just isn't that exciting to you, which is fine, or if you're using the wrong context. Because I know that when I think back on the things that have really meant something to me and made me feel alive, yes, considering other contexts besides death, it can be really safe and that can feel comfortable. But I know that the things that have made me feel really, really, really alive and really proud to have this experience and just joyful and fulfilled have been the moments where I did let death be the most meaningful context, because it's true.